color is very much about atmosphere and emotion and the feel of a place.
In black and white, you suggest. In color, you state. Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And I don't know what with the singing beginning.
I
just got
did the Fonz. Was this Elvis?
Well,
what was this supposed to be?
I don't know. I don't know. Don't ask me these questions so late at night. Episode 220, and as long as we're going with area codes, area code for 220 is the state of Ohio, specifically covering the central and southeastern regions, including Athens, Lancaster, Newark, and Zanesville. I didn't know that Ohio had a Newark.
Newark?
Yeah,
No,
yeah. And it also has an Athens.
Newark,
New York has an Athens, too.
And Georgia has an Athens.
Oh, right. Yeah. What is with these names? What is it? And
I don't know.
just
people far away from each other naming things.
I think
that's what's going on.
I think every northeastern state has a town called Woodstock, too.
That's confusing.
Yeah, there's one.
Show up, you go take a pilgrimage and end up in Woodstock, Maine.
There is like a Woodstock, Maine. There's a Woodstock in Vermont. Actually, I don't know if there's a Woodstock, Maine. I know there's a Woodstock in Vermont. There's a Woodstock in Connecticut, and certainly a Woodstock in New York. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one in Maine.
There's a
New
Woodstock, Ontario, in Canada too.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. That would be a bad pilgrimage. Hey, was where the hippies were? No, a little far, a little distant. Yeah. So and since nobody's complaining about our area code numbers, we'll just keep going until someone says please stop. But
until we hit a gap.
Yeah, no, this is so that we can get like what is it? Like, not keywords. What is it? If they start they start transcribing our podcast, we'll get a whole new audience of people who are interested in area codes.
Oh yes, the search engine optimization.
SEO. Sorry, boy, I figure that out. Yeah. So anybody who's here who's thinking this is a podcast about area codes, I'm sorry to disappoint, but just hang in there with us. You might learn something. So anyway, welcome to this is the episode 220, and we're at the end of November already. So
November.
Yeah, we
coming into the holiday season.
The damn holiday season started like 3 weeks ago. And again, this is I'm gonna whine and bitch a little bit, and this is, I'm sure half the people or all the people know this, but I'm okay with Christmas stuff starting after American Thanksgiving. Like that, I'm fine with that, no problem. But when it starts in October, especially at like the Home Depot and Lowe's, and I know they got to set stuff up, but it's just, do that. That's okay, but don't play the music, It's like this, the music maybe the worst part of it. I think leave the music out of it, and I don't hate
satellite radio and my wife's SUV. Yeah, no.
Oh,
it starts as soon as it starts.
Really?
So
oh my God.
We go anywhere and she's driving. We're listening to that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah. Well,
try and tune it up.
Yeah. Just bring back the spirit of the holiday rather than all this. Because it's all about commercial stuff when they do this, just so they can sell the stuff and whatever. So what have you been up to? Are you jonesing for? We're recording this before American Thanksgiving, so do you get any access to Black Friday sales? Are you gonna?
We do have the Black Friday business going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about buying a small flash actually to take with me to Japan.
Oh,
the little Godox Lux Junior, it's called. It just runs on a couple of AAA batteries. It's a manual flash, and you can set the power level on it. I'm thinking, why don't I something a little bit more powerful than that little guide number 8 thing that comes with my cameras? So
you're gonna do it on camera flash?
Yeah, I'll have on camera flash.
Ooh.
To go with that kind of Japanese photo book aesthetic that I'm thinking of doing over there, where there's a lot of like kind of deer in the headlights flash on certain subjects. So I could just keep keep my options open there,
Uh-huh.
and it won't be taking up much space in my bag.
Yeah, you're not going to do a Bruce Gilden kind of thing, though, right? Or maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see what my nerve is like there.
They're probably used to it. I mean, and like, they're photographing, people, and we're photographing people. So maybe, I think everybody's used to this stuff now. So,
well, and also too, I'll be on the lowest power, right? If the subjects are close,
yeah.
I'm not going to be, it won't be a big blazing flash.
Ooh, do you want to do it during the day too?
I may, yeah.
Ah.
Do some fill or whatever, or if I'm under shade, that sort of thing.
Kind of cool to do some I don't know. Is there a word for it when you overpower the light on a daytime? I mean, you would need a lot of power, but depending on the kind of day, you could certainly overpower the ambient light with that flash.
Yeah.
But is there a name for that style, or whatever it's called? I don't think so. Not that I know of.
Well, I don't think this flash is powerful enough. I think the guide number's like 29 or something.
Okay.
So farthest I could get is 30 feet wide open. And
but I mean, but maybe close up, right? You might, and again,
close up. Yeah,
and if it was like an overcast day where the light outside is not so, I wonder what that would be like.
It'll be something to play with. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what my nerve is. I mean, I don't want to be distracted too much with new and interesting technology while I'm trying to adhere to some ideas. I did have ChatGPT actually create some notes for me.
Oh, and
based on the kind of I don't want to share too much because it may not turn out the way I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
But I gave ChatGPT some ideas of what I'm going to be shooting and what Japanese photographers I'm influenced by, and it came up with a wonderful set of notes that I'm kind of using as inspiration to get me my mindset, daytime, nighttime, when I'm out with my daughter, and then everything else that doesn't fit.
Is there one thing you might be able to share that just like maybe in a phrase or a word that kind of?
Well, I used the word psychological in my query when I asked ChatGPT. So it said, daytime, when you take pictures of the day, think of it as being the conscious part of the city. I was just talking about Tokyo specifically. So have the mind of subject matter that suggests the conscious part of the city. Nighttime is the subconscious part. So hidden desires, sneaking around, dark secrets,
that's
all that sort of thing is night. And then the one that I'm calling that's, doesn't fit in any other box is the I'm calling it behind the scenes or backstage, and there's a Japanese phrase for it. I can't remember what it is, but it's the id. It's the random impulses of the city, and the city as organism, which is like trains and dilapidated, and it's so these notes have been really, really good.
Yeah,
and then my daughter, so that my emotional connection to the city. So there's 4 buckets.
Boy.
When I go out, I'll pick 1 or 2 of those buckets and keep my mindset, because I really love the idea. One of the limitations is, what is it I'm going to be chasing after? What am I feeling when I'm shooting? Right? It's one thing I learned from New York and Mexico, right? Have a mindset when you're going out to shoot, and Ralph Gibson too. And try and work on that. And I'm planning 2 trips on this one, and then my daughter's going to be working there another year, so I'll probably make another trip. So
really,
if I don't get it all, this year, then I've got next year to look forward to too. So I'm excited and motivated, and I'm going to try and cover as much ground as I can, and we'll see what happens. And
are you gonna stay in a hotel or?
Yeah, I'm going to stay at a hotel, and then which is not too far. It's probably about a 10-minute walk from my daughter's place. My daughter lives in like a 300 square foot apartment. So it's about the size of our deck in the back of our house. And I'm not kidding. And it's on 2 levels. So it's pretty small. Yeah. So, I'm staying at a hotel. It's pretty close. And there's some side trips I want to make to Hiroshima and maybe, I don't know, Osaka, probably Osaka as well.
Yeah.
I'm fine staying in the city. I don't really have a pressing need to visit the whole country and the countryside. I might do that later, but while I have this urban thing going on, I kind of want to stay in the city, go to the busy places and some of the touristy and less touristy places.
All right.
Figure it out. So the research is thick and fast, and it's.
I really like that you do all this research ahead of time with stuff, and maybe sometime we can sort of dive into that a little bit more. I mean, and I'm wondering how that could translate to not even having to travel. Like, how would you approach research in your local area, and rather than just randomly going out and shooting, like you were just talking about? It'd be interesting to see how that would work. Because why wouldn't it work if you're close by? But that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because I don't do that.
Well, just to answer that a little bit. I think when I shoot the Stampede in street here in town, it is just to work my chops in the camera and my timing and everything. And so when I go to a travel destination, it's definitely worth it for me to make the best use of my time by deciding what my limitations are, and working within those, and then rely on whatever technical chops I have when I'm shooting.
Yeah. Well, you're saying that using it as like a testing ground and you know, to apply your things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I'm also thinking about, like, when I talk to students and stuff and try to say that, you know, you don't have to go and travel to some location to try to get great photographs. I mean, it certainly helps because you're in someplace new and you can, you know, you're seeing everything for the first time. And I said, the real challenge is if you can do that, you know, within, you know, 10 square miles of where you live, you know, the places that you see every day, how can you approach those differently? And, you know, how to not, and I'm actually thinking this out loud because it would be kind of cool to parse to the students, would be how to approach your own area or wherever you're going to photograph that's familiar in the way that you're approaching going to Tokyo. Do you know what I mean? You know, and in other words, the location really, I mean, almost doesn't matter. I mean, forgetting culture and strange, you know, differences and stuff like that, which you can always take in while you're, you know, wandering around. But how can you do that? So you do go out with a, you know, a purpose and an idea of what you want to capture. And that's something I really want to try to instill in the students. So that, I mean, I tell them that they should have projects in mind, you know, because, like, you know, I'm doing the, you know, if I'm doing the shots of the, you know, the painted fire hydrants. I mean, these are more like collections, I would say, but it's like have a bunch of those in mind so that when you're walking around, you've got some reason to go out there. But I think maybe retooling it in a way that you're talking about, like doing some kind of research, which is, you know, ChatGPT or anything like that, can be very helpful. It's just like, it's a way to bounce ideas around if you don't have other people to talk to for that. But yeah, that would be kind of, I'm going to put that in my, you know, should I write that down? It's like,
put that in your journal.
Put that in my journal. Use GPT for local research. Yeah. Let's see if I'll remember that. But anyway, that's cool. All right. And you said that you may or may not be going to Florida for Daytona.
Yeah. So yeah, the Daytona 24-hour race I had been going to right up until the pandemic, and haven't been there since. And so my friendships have kind of from down there have kind of waned.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go down one more time. And the day job I have now doesn't give me as many vacation days, and so I think as my kind of photographic, if I'm taking time off to do photographic things, I think my motorsport photography is going to be taking a back seat, because I did move away from sports when I got rid of my Canon gear and went towards Fuji.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to, I might buy your lens. We got to talk about that.
Oh, we're back to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
There. So I might, you know, got to haggle on that one.
Yeah, it won't be that much haggling.
And it'll be, yeah. But I'll, you know, I don't have a long lens. I don't have like anything that's getting me out to 200 millimeters.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have something in there. And the 50 to 140 is just a little bit too heavy. And I like something that's I can deal. The cameras and the sensors are well enough. I can use higher ISO, and so I can have a smaller aperture at the long end, and that's fine.
And for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, I have a Fuji 55 to 200 millimeter lens that I'm willing to sell to Ward, and we're going to figure that out. And it was my first, I would quote unquote long zoom on my Fuji, and it's a really good lens. It's not their most expensive lens and whatnot, but for that range, I've done a lot of really good bird photography with it. I mean, it's, it could use a little bit of a oomph to it, but I think that's a great, that is definitely a great focal length. And that ends up
travel zoom too.
It is. So what is that? Like it's a 75, 80 millimeter to 300, right? Equivalent. 300, yeah. So, it's a good lens, for what it is. And, so, we'll work on that. I need to start selling some of my stuff and get rid of some of my stuff. So yeah. All right, cool. Thinking about selling stuff. Yeah. Did I tell you I sold my XT3?
I think you did.
Yeah. I sold it to a friend of mine. He actually still owes me some money on it, but it's okay. Like I'm not pushing him on it, but, a lot of people have come into my class, and now I'm getting a lot more people in my classes who are carrying Fuji cameras, which I thought was really interesting. And a few people have come in with XT3s, and I keep saying, "God, man, that was my best camera." I think that was one of the
people love that.
I'm not.
There's a YouTuber whose name escapes me right now who said his favorite camera after all these years was the XT3.
It's sort of I think the best of that range of the XT cameras. I think. I mean, not saying that the XT4 or 5 are bad, but I think the 3 has a lot of good combinations of things. It doesn't have the fastest processor and the most megapixels, and it doesn't have image stabilization in it, but it just had a really good feel to it. And I had it didn't come with a battery grip. I still have my XT2. My XT2 came with a battery grip, but it really felt good in the hands, and I think it was really a reliable camera. And I'm not sure why I'm bringing that up exactly. Oh, because I'm trying to sell stuff, and so the idea of like having cameras sit around in my closet gathering dust, and like even the lenses and stuff like that, it's time to part with some of the stuff and give it a good life. And my friend O'Neill, he has it now, and he's using it for all sorts of things, and it's good to see it being used more. And I'm still, I'm with the X100 and the medium format camera. Like those have become my sort of go-to things now. So it's good to see something and good to spread that Fuji world a little bit, get it to, people fall in love with this kind of stuff. So yeah. But what was I going to say? I made a bit of a boo-boo last week in my, I misspoke, I think, a little bit. It was just about with my new friend, my new girlfriend, Angie. I think she said, I listened to the podcast and you said it was good news I was coming. And then you said, then it's not good news. And so I was like, geez, what was I trying to say? I said to her, I didn't mean that. I think I was just like, I sometimes cut my sentences off or my thought processes, and she's like, why did you mean that? I'm like, no. That's not what I meant. So I wanted to acknowledge that if anybody said, well, he's saying he had a new girlfriend that was good news, and then it's not good news. No, it's very good news. And she's visiting me from Nebraska, and we're not running a video now, but I'm wearing she brought me a Nebraska hat, which was really nice. I feel like I should, go to Nebraska and I fit right in with this hat and in a Nebraska, the Huskers, Cornhuskers hoodie. So wearing those two things, we went on to the Circle Line for my birthday. My birthday was just this past Saturday. So I am now officially in the 60s. And you've been there for a little while.
I've been there since May.
You've been there since May.
So the Circle Line, remind us what the Circle Line is.
So the Circle Line is, so I'll give you a quick backstory. She asked, what did I want to do for my birthday? And I couldn't come up with an idea about going to a show or something. I was like, that's not the thing that I would pick for myself, And I've lived in New York all my life, and there's this boat there's a tour boat that goes around the city. It goes around on the outside of Manhattan. It's called the Circle Line, and it's been around since ever. And I see it all the time when I'm near the river. Oh, there's a Circle Line. I should go on it. Never went on it. So when I was doing a search for what should I do on my birthday on November 23rd, I was looking maybe for a concert or something like that. And the third thing that popped up was a circle. And I was like, I've never been on that before. And I said, and it wasn't that expensive. You get what are called premier seats, which means you get the left side of the boat, which faces the city. I mean, those are sort of locked in seats, and you can be inside and outside. And so I was like, okay. And I asked her, and she's like, that's perfect. I'm like, yeah. So we're going on a cruise for my birthday. And we went. It was, first of all, the day before it was pouring rain, and we really needed the rain because of the.
I was going to ask you how the weather was. So.
Well, the night before we were worried because it was pouring, and we need that rain because we were in red flag conditions here with a lot of brush fires and stuff, and I think we're in a drought. I think we're still in it, a drought warning now, but we're not restrictions yet. And the next day I was like, oh, it's going to be, the forecast was saying maybe rain. I was like, well, it doesn't matter. We can be inside the boat too, so it won't be so bad. It was a perfect flipping day. And we get out there, and we got 2 seats in the front of the boat, so I have perfect windows to see. Although, of course, when we took off, I'm facing right into the sunlight, so it was like a greenhouse, and I baked. But yeah, but I brought my X100V because I thought maybe I would do some street photography or something like that, or take pictures of the city while we're going around. And it was by the way, I recommend anybody who's coming to the city for the first time, take that Circle Line. The tour guide on that, she was great, and I learned a lot of stuff. I also knew a lot of stuff too. I was like, maybe I could do that as a job. But what's funny is that I took maybe like 3 pictures with the camera, and the rest of the stuff I took with my phone. And I was really happy with the way the phone pictures were turning out. Of course, they're being processed right as I'm photographing them. But like that idea of I was essentially a tourist in my own town.
Yeah.
And doing that in a way of like everybody else is, right? Like I'm looking at that, and I'm going to use my phone to take pictures. And the pictures were great. I mean, they were exactly what I wanted, and I didn't have to, plus I have the zoom on that, or the 3 lenses. And the XT does have a digital zoom on it, but I was like, and I had to think too much about it. And I don't know, there was just, and it struck me this thing that going out with like professional equipment and then a phone, and then deciding that the professional equipment is going to sit, in the bag, and I'm just having a lot more fun with phone photography. So, I mean, this is nothing new, but every time it happens, it sort of strikes me again and again, like this is I don't know, this seems like, I want to say the way of the future, but it just seems like it satisfies a lot of, it ticks a lot of the boxes, for me, and especially for these kind of pictures, which, may not do anything with. I'm not going to print them, or maybe I'll print them. Maybe I'll put them in a book for, you don't even think about that. Making a Angie in town with me, and making a zine from that. I should do that. Okay, that's another thing to write down.
Write it down. Get in your journal. Don't spill your ink everywhere. Though.
Yeah. No. I'm not futzing with the pen this time. I'm gonna say that zine with Angie. Sorry. Excuse me, everybody. I got to write things down, otherwise I forget them. So yeah, we did that. Oh, one quick fun story about that though. We were told at the beginning of the tour that we may not be able to make it around the island because the tide was high. Sounds like I want to break up into a song. The tide was high, and the bridge was one of the bridges we had to cross was low, and so we might have to turn around and backtrack. And so we were going up the river, and we're in the Harlem River, and we're going under a lot of bridges. And finally, we reach one bridge, and the tour guide says, "Okay, so the captain says we can take a chance on this, but we need everybody to go to the front of the boat." And everybody's laughing and stuff like that. And she says, "No, I'm serious. Go to the front of the boat if you want to go through." And everybody that could fit on the bow went to the bow of the boat, including me and Angie. And we went there, and that tipped the boat down at the bow far enough that we just cleared the bridge by like 4 inches. And we're watching this bridge go right above our heads, and we get through, and then like everybody applauds. And it was one of those I don't know. It was almost like a moment that I say that like sounded like it was set up by the captain to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
think so, because they actually offered us
4 inches is, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it was great. I mean, I should ask if anybody's taken that circle line before, and it's like, does that happen on every ride? Do they just do it? But I don't think so. It was really nice to see the city from those points of view, from the outside looking in, and it was about a 2.5 hour ride. So, and then we ended up going into Times Square, and then we did go to a show. So we saw Hamilton. So she had, it was a surprise that she took. So, but I was kind of thinking, like, walking around in Times Square, doing some more street photography, and I just didn't. I just sort of absorbed stuff with the phone and whatnot, and we did a lot of ussies, and so anyway, that was a lot of fun. It's been kind of like quiet on the photography front, in that sense, but it was nice doing it as a tourist. That's what I appreciated. So, but yeah, that's kind of my news. Oh, and I just got an email today from another library. Oh, actually, one of the libraries I'm working with now, but not the main one, asking if I wanted to do a 4-week course in photography. They just got a budget. And so like a continuous course for photography for 4 weeks. So I was like, yeah, that's, I was like, absolutely not a problem with me. So yeah, but that's kind of it. I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't got any photo stuff around. I'm just, we're just hanging out and stuff, but, we're going to, what are we doing tomorrow? We're going to do the Brooklyn Bridge tomorrow. So imagine, I don't know, maybe I won't bring my camera. I think it's gonna be all iPhone stuff again, but Dumbo, the same place that you walked around when you were here.
Yeah, I had a day to myself there, and I did Dumbo and the Brooklyn Bridge. It was lovely.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. And then crossing the bridge and then going into the lower Manhattan. We'll probably go to like Trinity Church or something like that, and we'll do the things. So yeah. Cool. But I probably will bring my big camera with me just in case, because if we go into Chinatown, it's always good to do. I want to do street shots with that, so we'll see. So yeah, it's a kind of slow photo zone, and but anyway, that's my news. I spent a lot of time talking about it. The agenda. What's the agenda? We're I wanted to talk about color again. And I remember we had talked, like, we really haven't spent a lot of shows like specifically talking about color, right? We did talk about,
we were talking about why black and white,
why black and white
color, and just basically an apology for why we would select one or the other.
Yeah. It's interesting. You thought it was an apology in a way?
Well, no, I mean the arcane word apology, like,
yes,
the like, here's where you would use color, here where you'd use black and white, and thinking about something a little bit deeper than that this time around.
Yeah. So one of the things that has come up in, I use my class. I get a lot of stuff from my classes or the students, and a few people pop in with Fuji cameras, and they're so. Anybody who knows Fuji cameras knows they have these things inside of them called film simulations, right? And it's to simulate all the different films, or many of the different films that Fuji produces in the real world, and you can simulate that on the Fuji cameras. So I will get some students who ask me, because one of the things I talk to the students about is shooting JPEG and RAW, right? And JPEG is, my quick explanations to them, which I now am locked into. I say, raw are like the raw ingredients of soup, the carrots and the potatoes and the beef and the stock and whatever. And JPEGs are like a can of Campbell's soup, right? Which brings funny. But the people who've got Fuji cameras say, well, do you process your pictures further, right? And because I tell them most of the time I use JPEGs as my final pictures, and then I will throw them into Lightroom or something like that, and I will do like maybe some color presets on them, or like other film simulations. So I'm Frankensteining the two, like I'll have a Fuji, I'll have like a Velvia film JPEG, and then I'll throw it into Lightroom and run a Kodachrome preset on it, which totally change the colors, And sometimes ruin it. Like I really play around with it, but sometimes the colors that come directly out of the Fuji camera are not enough. And of course, someone's going to say on the other end while they're listening to this, like, why the hell are you not using the raw? In that case, right? And for me, it's not because I want to have the raw file look like Kodachrome. It's because I want that combination. I want that Frankenstein because it's mixing, two cans of soup together in a way. If we keep with that analogy, but the idea of like how do I come up with these like desires for changing the color of my pictures, and what is it that I'm trying to say by changing the colors or creating certain tones? And if we start to look at photographers that we that we admire, the Stephen Shores of the world, or Todd Hido. I'm always going to say his name wrong. Yeah. And those of us who have like these definitive color palettes, there's a guy I follow on Instagram and Facebook who he's created his own palette, and of course he sells now the presets to it, and it was part of his color style, or what would you call, maybe color voice, we could say, for fun. And like, what drives that? What drives the combinations of colors, or the creation of colors in your own photographs. And so anyway, I wanted to sort of parse that out a little bit and see where we would go with it. So
Okay.
There's a lot of intro to, I don't know where you can come in on this.
Well, I would say, and I had mentioned before we started the show about color being another language to me, coming from a black and white darkroom, working 95% of the work that I create is in black and white.
Right.
And angling my craft away from color. And so color is like, I almost like, I got to think about this, how exactly I want to express myself in color. Sometimes, very often, I'll take whatever colors come with the image and I shoot raw, and the preset on the Fuji cameras, because I don't set any film recipes, but when the raw comes in, it comes in with the Provia setting, so which is kind of a neutral black and white, neutral color, easy to work with, not too stylish, to work from.
Right.
And very often that's enough. The color image that I get is really good, but for me it'll be a learning process to figure out, what exactly would be my preferences in dealing with color. Sometimes you want to move the saturation up or down. And there was a time when I was for sure shooting street 10 or so years ago, where I would have just barely any saturation at all. It'd be just above black and white.
Really?
Yeah, I was flirting with that for a while. And I kind of liked it. It was kind of like, I was kind of ambivalent of, oh yeah, you want color? Well, just give you a little bit of color. And I liked the faded, but it didn't look old timey, and it didn't look retouched. It just looked faded, and I kind of liked the idea of that. That's about as far as I got in terms of color expression. So this conversation will interest me, because going to Japan, there will be colorful subjects.
Right.
I'm not going to desaturate absolutely everything. There are, cherry blossoms and fruit and colorful scenes and temples and things like that really deserve to be covered in color. And so I like the phrase color voice. I like the term. What would be my color voice? What is it that I can learn from this discussion and in my own work that'll move me along? So that's sort of where I sit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sort of a newbie, I think, really, when I think about it in color. I mean, I understand a bit of the color science part, and curves, and the RGB and the CMYK of it all. But how do I want to express myself with this?
And then to expand it also past the the psychology of color, because I think we talked about that a while back.
Yeah.
And there I don't know. I was looking up this topic before we were online, and I saw some very strange kind of interpretations of some pictures, which seemed very ordinary to me. But someone was saying the green can represent jealousy, and the blue can represent that,
Mhm.
and it sounded like a bunch of BS to me in some way.
Yeah.
But I get that idea that colors in general do have this psychology to it. But some people see red as warm and inviting, and other people see red as danger and foreboding. And maybe it's a cultural thing, or maybe it's
Mhm.
both. So colors can mean all sorts of things. So going beyond color as a psychology or in the photograph, which is using that as a tool when it pops up, I think is fine. I'm not judging that. But when
Mhm.
I go and photograph in color, I mean, part of me is also not looking for the reality of color. And that crosses a lot of the pictures I take, and the easier one is like sunrises, right? And we've talked about this
Right.
a
I was going to
zillion times.
ask you about that. Yeah.
Because again, this is the thing about feeling. We're photographing feelings. And this is, I tell my class, like, if we were to take a picture directly from the camera and look at it, it would probably be pretty boring. And maybe you guys are experiencing that because you're taking pictures and you're just being okay with what the camera spits out for you. And that's why I kind of sort of push post processing,
Mhm.
because it's all about how did you feel when you saw the picture? What does a sunset mean, or a sunrise or whatever? What does it mean to you? And how do you express that? And I get those people who ask me, well, that's not the way the real colors look. I was like, well, who the hell is to say that? Because, it almost doesn't matter, but I try not to get into those arguments. And I don't, I mean, I understand what they're saying.
Mhm.
That being said, I don't have, we talk about color voice. Maybe I'm still searching for my color voice because I I tend to, when I said I Frankenstein things together,
Mhm.
I Frankenstein things together, and I say, well, what does this picture say to me? And yeah, maybe I'll use a darker tone processing on this one picture, and then I'll use something brighter and less saturated on another. And maybe looking at them together, you wouldn't think that they were done by the same person.
Right.
But I'm not necessarily thinking about like what is the voice. I mean, my voice would be like more like speaking in tongues. you know if I was to think about it, because the colors are kind of all over the place. The black and white is easier in a sense because already you, by eliminating the colors, it's just a matter of tonality and contrast and stuff, and you don't have that distracting. But colors, especially in a city environment where I photograph, they're kind of all over the place, And so
Mhm.
again, I get that question, like, why do you choose color over black and white or something like that? And it's a hard thing to answer for me all the time. But as you were saying, we were talking about color voice. I just pulled off the shelf a book from. I've got this book from Dan Winters, America, and I've always been impressed by his palettes, whatever they are, and they're very much the same. When you talk about desaturated, maybe darker tones or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's very, I'm assuming it's very definitely processed in a style. And
Mhm.
his voice is very obvious to me, you know. And is there an advantage or disadvantage to having that? Because I guess it also then ties in with a style. Like, can you recognize your style, or is it about the subject matter? What fits the whatever you're taking a picture of. His celebrity pictures, at least in this book, are are very low key kind of shots, and the
Mhm.
color palette is very, I don't know, it does seem like very him, you know.
Mhm.
So but in terms of for my own work, like, I don't know, I don't think I ever really thought in that way that I was going to be have a deliberate statement with the kind of colors that I shot. In my neighborhood, I have that building with the stripes, the three bold
Yeah.
colors,
Yeah. The
and
primary colors.
yeah, the three primary colors. And every time I try to photograph it, I think, well, should I try to do something different with the color on it? And I can't. It's almost like I can't. I
Yeah.
look at it, and I mean, that picture, that building, and taking a picture of it is only about the color, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
Well, no, but I'm thinking of But when you're saying you're Frankensteining something, though, and I sort of do the same with the desaturation and whatever, though
Yeah.
I just accept the default film simulation in dealing with and you starting with a raw to begin with. You at the end of that, you do get the picture that you want. I mean, you said you've wrecked a few, whatever, but
Right.
you get the image that you want, and so that is your style. That's what your subconscious or conscious mind is telling you want to create, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's giving you the feeling that you had on the day at the moment that you took the picture, and that's a color voice. I mean, in the most rudimentary way, you're making it look the way you want, and so that's your voice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that, and you know, I don't know how deep we want to chase into that, but I mean, they're no, but there are different components to that, right? So there's, you know, with sunrises, the colors they give you an emotional component, right? There's an emotional impact there.
Right.
You know, you're taking pictures of nature. There's a you know, if you're changing saturation or doing something to the color or punching the greens or the yellows in foliage, you're bringing it up, you're making it a little bit more real, the feeling that you're having.
Yeah.
You know, and I see all these things kind of, they're like different sliders of creative energy that you're putting into them, putting into the images, right?
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about, as you're talking, you know, I go back into time and think about the photographer Pete Turner, who I learned about when I worked at the Image Bank, but he was, you know, one of those, I would say pioneer in color photography, but I think he was, in the sense of pushing colors in his palette to these extremes. And one of his techniques was rephotographing Kodachrome film, right? And so, like, in other words, duplicating. So he would take a picture of something and then he would duplicate it on another Kodachrome slide, and it would naturally do is build up the contrast and the saturation. And when you look at his photographs, his pictures, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can pick out a Pete Turner picture from, you know, anything, because certainly because of his color voice in those shots. And you know, I mean, first of all, I appreciate and I really like that he did that because of the consistency, and his picture style. I don't know. I think they're very different because of the subject matter, but it was always the color that carried over, you know? So you know, he might photograph, you know, a lake, the wake of a boat on a lake in a fjord, and then photograph a person wearing clown makeup and one on a garbage can on a beach, and they're all very different subjects, but what carries through them is the color that he brings to the table there, you know. And he's certainly not trying to duplicate reality, you know. But at some point he's going abstract as well.
That's an important thing we have to think about too.
What?
It's part the color, the way you process color is part of your creative expression, and that's something that we need to instill in people that are new, that yes, post-processing and creating the color palette that you want in the image is part of the creative act of creating the image. And that's what I think a lot of people stumble over. I'm sorry, interrupted there, but
no, that's fine. I don't mind that. Actually, going in that direction, you know, again, back to my classes, I have a class in the library that was about processing. And what I imagine, you know, when you and I went into the dark room, our options were rather limited, more or less, certainly compared to today, right? So papers, whatever, right? But today you sit in front of Lightroom or whatever processing program, and it looks like, you know, the inside of an airplane, right? With all these sliders going in all these directions. And like, when someone is starting off new, and even if you're not starting off new, I think you have this, where do you even start? Like, how do you even translate your visual voice, your color voice into those sliders, and how not to be influenced by them? In other words, your sliders can sort of guide you and tell you what is good, rather than you saying, well, this is what I want, and this is, and how do I
Right.
do it?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying either way is valid or invalid, but I sit there and I tell the students, like, okay, well, play around with the sliders a little bit and try these things, and they do, and I mean, it's a lot of fun to play around with stuff, but I think there's still the deer in headlights kind of thing. Like, I don't know what to do. Why am I doing this? Why
Mhm.
do I want to brighten the shadows? Why do I want to
Right.
do X, Y, and Z? And sometimes it's a hard question to answer. Well, that's more like not color things, but why would I want to change this?
Post processing in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like for instance, another thing, when I photographed the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens calendar, and I would come back and post process, I always took the green of the leaves and I started to skew them slightly blue. So I'd
Mhm.
always go into the green channel or whatever, the green section of for the in Lightroom, and pick out the greens, and I would inevitably dial them towards a little bit more blue. And I
Right.
don't know why I did that. And I still do that. Like, I still like when my greens are going a little bit more towards the blue. And I'm
It's
not
funny
sure
when I
what.
shot in the mountains. Just to carry on that thought,
Yeah.
when I shoot in the mountains, which is very rarely, we were talking about 10, 15 years ago, or on vacation, pine trees tend to, the way I exposed, the pine trees were green. They were kind of a blue green, but they were definitely kind of almost underexposed.
Uh huh.
And what I would do is I'd boost the yellow, and that made them a brighter green,
Uh huh.
but just enough just to get it past, just bring them up from where they were.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look unnatural, but they definitely look more green and a little bit more interest. But if you didn't know, it was a
Right.
subtle thing
Right.
that I would
Right.
do.
Right. Right.
And
But
I
you would
love that. I love those
notice
those
if it wasn't
pictures.
there, though, right? I mean, in
Yeah,
a sense, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, back to like, how do you even begin to get a color voice? Because as photographers, we're worried about, not worried. We're working on how do we want to present ourselves? How do we make ourselves different in some cases from other photographers? And maybe that's not the way to approach it. I'm thinking that out loud. Is that if you start comparing yourself to other photographers and say I want to be something different, that's a problem, I think. But you
Hmm.
want to uh, figure out who you are with your camera, and not only is it visual and with lenses. We once, was it with you I did, or was it with Tom? We talked about the language of lenses. I think it was with Tom. I did that
Yeah, I don't remember
podcast.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably do a follow up on that. That'd be kind of nice. But that idea that I always tell students that each lens has a different language and voice, and then you combine all this stuff, and how to combine it into a harmony of an image, the visual, the lens, the exposure, and then the color,
Hmm.
and how does that all work out, and just not be some, like I said, speaking in tongues, a cacophony of all sorts of stuff. So going back to the sliders and stuff like that, where does one start? How does one even determine, like, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? What comes first? When I was doing slide film, again, sorry, the old days, but there was some pluses to having limitations. Kodachrome was a certain color palette, so I knew if I
Hmm.
wanted something like that, if I wanted, if I was doing travel shots, I might do Velvia because I really wanted to boost the color. And we had limitations in terms of, like, I'm talking about slide film, not negatives now.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to, especially in Kodachrome, when you underexposed by like a third of a stop, it changed almost the entire color palette of the slide. And so you knew those kind of tricks, and so you were limited. Today there's almost no limitation. And so how does one find their voice in those sliders? Like, how do you even begin that? And that's kind of why I like the Fuji cameras, because again, we're back to these limitations. Although we were talking about recipes before, there seems to be endless amounts of ways of
Hmm.
combining recipes.
Well, it's to recapture the actual, because there was a day where I did the. It was on on my XE3, so I didn't have that blue yellow balance thing that's in there.
Right.
but I had everything else, and the pictures that I got out of it, the JPEGs did look like Kodachrome. They had those deep, almost blood reds,
Right.
and I underexposed a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I could get into this,
Right. Right.
but it was just for a day. But it was like a nostalgia of recreating something I had done before.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not part of my forward-looking kind of creative, this is the direction I'm going to go. But at least I know that this stuff, if I want to visit it, I certainly can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, if that's your thing, like playing around with these recipes and the film simulations, it's kind of endless. You can do some very cool things. And a lot of the images that I see where the photographer's proud to share which film simulation they used, and you can use that, as inspiration, and kind of put that in your back pocket and say, in this situation, I think I might go that direction. I mean, when you're saying about being influenced by others, that's what I think, one-off things where you think, we do ask, how did they do that? And then if they do share, there can be some value in it for sure. And it is something that you could chase after when it's your turn and you're in that situation.
Yeah, sure. You could do that. But, how do you then latch onto something on your own? Like, how do you, and we may not have that answer today, but I think I'm going to say with a broad brush, very few people are going to photo school these days, right? A lot of people are just dropping into it. They buy a camera and they don't even know half of what they can do with the cameras. And I mean that not as a put down, it's just the cameras are so complicated, and they're like, what are they going to do with this? And, back in the day when you had film, you already were sort of, if you bought a camera and you had film, you were like, that's it. You didn't have to worry about that aspect, that the pictures would look a certain color and you're done. Today, again, it's like too many choices. And, how does, I don't know if I'm reading the minds of people who are just getting into photography now, but I wonder how frustrating it is that you might take a picture and it just doesn't turn out the way you think it is. And, maybe post-processing is part of the solution, but they see a thing in a certain color and their camera doesn't do it, and they don't know how to process the color in whatever program, and it turns them off of photography or just frustrates them. And I think I see that a lot. I think that's the overall.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, so you do see that?
I do see that, not every time, but it does, it does come up, because the people who are coming to classes of mine, they're not taking a regime of classes. They're learning on YouTube. They're doing the same thing. They take this, that, they watch this YouTube video, they watch this thing, and they see that and little bits and pieces, and their bucket never fills up entirely with like a consistency. So when I talk to a class about processing, it's not enough for me to say like, oh well, you should try to find your voice in processing, because the picture does not end when you snap the picture. You take it back. I mean, it can. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be.
No.
But you're potentially missing out on something if you don't investigate. We're talking about color this time now, not black and white. But if you don't investigate what the options are, but what are those options? Like, how do we explain like what a picture color should look like, and how do you explain to somebody, how do you feel when you look at that picture? Well, you don't really say I feel red when I look at that picture, or I feel green, and then. Like, how do you translate that stuff to end up being? I know I'm sort of diving into post-processing now, which it wasn't meant to do. I think it's part of it, because you are shaping things like the color and the voice through every aspect of the the picture taking.
Yeah, I'm just thinking here. If you're going out, the point is to shoot color, find color subjects that interest you, right?
Right.
Shoot them, go back, look in your, whatever your post-processing workflow is. And then, like I always do in Lightroom, it's coarse, but I say, what's the biggest problem that I have to deal with first? What's the one thing that's bugging me about this? That's diverging from what I thought I was getting, or what, as close as I could get when I was shooting, I knew I would have to do something whatever the rationalization is. and make those adjustments, whatever that is. Oh, it's not saturated enough. I'll bump the saturation enough
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little bit. Change the clarity, change the white balance so the white balance is off.
yeah.
Those sorts of things. And I think you can get there. But I mean, I think it starts with a subject that you are interested in and that you're paying attention when you're shooting it enough that when you get the raw or the image back in your workflow, that you've got some guide veins as to what direction you can go. I just think it's just a matter of the craft part of it, just
Right.
moving those sliders.
So maybe it's like, as you're saying that, I'm starting to think of, I'm just looking at a little paragraph about Todd Hido, excuse me. I'm going to figure that how he pronounces his name. Anyway, him adjusting his colors while he's printing to reflect his own like emotions in that, and like aiming for an authentic image, but while also acknowledging that his color choices are very, very subjective. And translating that to, let's see, I just had a point here and I'm losing it. Oh, this happens to me all the time. That idea that, okay, maybe this is it. First of all, putting limitations on yourself. Oh, I know. In the sort of the same way at the beginning that you said you research, you're doing all this research before you're going to Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to figure out the styles you're going to shoot or whatever, how you do that. Like, couldn't that apply to a post-production workflow as well? Right.
Sure.
So like one may need to sit there and say, okay, what do colors mean to me? Right. And what do I want to say with my color palette, with whatever that is? And so that once you go into a program to do post-production and adjust colors to your style, that you're not just sliding things back and forth. You're saying,
right,
well, I am not going to adjust my saturation higher than this ever, like for whatever, maybe this project or something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless of what, you want to do, like maybe the picture also then maybe recognizing, well, this picture doesn't work if I only go to this. And so therefore it might not be an image that I would choose to process. Is that making any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You mean the boundaries of what you're trying to achieve. And sometimes you have to throw the fish back, right?
Right.
If it doesn't make it. And that's part of discards are, a lot of photography. You miss the moment. You did whatever. The color palette's just not there. You let it go.
So, so starting off with those boundaries is probably a very useful thing then, because then you're saying, well, I prefer pictures that are not, that don't have, or, that have blocked up shadows. Like these shots, this project, this body of work, the shadows are not going to have any detail in them. Right. And you work on it and you go, oh, okay, well, it doesn't work for that. Rather than trying to save it or say, I'm going to open it up, I'm going to go against my mandate for this project or whatever, the limits I want to go to, you just say, this is not going to work for this. Right. And in a way, it doesn't mean it's a bad picture. Maybe you can come back to it later and do something else to it. But for within this range of work that you're doing or whatever your idea is, you say, yeah, this one's not going to work okay. That's interesting. I never thought about it like that, like thinking, trying to save every picture or trying to do something with every shot.
Well, we do culls all the time anyway. We go through, we make our selects.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that are worth doing post on. And then we sit down and we start in the workflow.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's the workflow part. But what about the actual expression and meaning in color? Like, should we go down that rabbit hole too?
Well, we can go down a little bit, given the time constraints that we have, but, well, say, give us a taster, just so we can maybe put this on.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about, bold contrasty colors appearing.
Right.
Like sports images, we like bold,
right?
Colorful, vibrant, almost surreal to help what I want to kind of magnify the energy and dynamism
Right,
of the
right,
subject, right? That
right.
suits itself to bold. You're taking pictures of a rainy day, or your son caught out with the lawnmower cutting the lawn and it's pouring rain, and you want the
Mm-hmm.
muted palette of the
Right,
green and the gray and the expression on his face and that sort of thing. And how these different representations of color have kind of an emotional meaning to not just to you shooting it, but the fact
right,
that it's actually happening in front of you and what it means
right,
for you and for the viewer.
right.
um and then there's the whole color science part of it, right?
Well,
If it's
yeah,
like
there's that.
your building that has the three primary colors on it, you can't do
Right,
anything with it because it's already there. It's like it's a
right,
completed work, right?
right.
Or you have like complementary colors, the orange and teal thing, which is really big here.
Yeah.
And it's got to be orange
Well,
subject with teal light in the background.
it's big for a reason. I mean, sure, but yeah, that will be another rabbit hole we should go down at another point. I would love to revisit the color science, because it's funny to talk about color science when color is almost. I mean, yes, there is a science to it, and you can measure it with the wavelengths and the this and the nanometers and the kelvins and all that crap. But we all all that doesn't mean anything when I'm looking at something, because to me, color is certainly a subjective thing more than an objective thing. I mean, at least in terms of what we're doing. We're not
Yeah.
doing astronomy or something like that. We're trying to figure out what gas a star is made out of.
Yeah, it's not a spectroscopy thing.
Right,
yeah.
right. But a muted lawn, rainy lawnmower day kind of thing might mean something different to different people, regardless of the color, And so yeah, I would love to do that. Again, it's just this thing of like, I don't know. Part of me wants to try to not eliminate, but to take away that mystery of what we might call the blank canvas, right? Like you're staring at a blank canvas and like, what the hell do you put on there? And where do you start? And for those of us who are well established or have been doing this for a while, we kind of know what to do. But this show is also scheduled for people who are listening for the first time, or at least I hope they're listening to us to try to pick up on something new or starting point. And that's kind of what I would like to, and we don't have to finish this today, but I really kind of want to just get people to think about, and this might actually help me as well. So I don't Frankenstein stuff all the time. Because I get into liking.
But maybe that's your workflow. Fine, you're Frankenstein.
That's
It's
true.
alive.
Yeah. I remember I put up one picture. This was interesting. The picture I'm thinking about specifically is in my neighborhood. There's actually a stable, right? I'm in Brooklyn, right? It's called I don't know if it's called the Kensington Stables or something like that. So you can actually, they've got horses in there, and there's a bridle path in Prospect Park, or at least there used to be. Actually, I don't really see these horses going on there. Anyway, every other Tuesday or something like that, this guy comes in from Pennsylvania, and he's got like a portable blacksmith. He's like a visiting blacksmith, right?
Yeah.
And I came across him one day, and he had the anvil out, like his truck with the it almost like an ice cream cart in the back, like a food cart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the he's heating them up with an oven, and he's got the anvil, and he's banging. I said, "You mind if I take some pictures?" And yeah, and I took some shots, and they looked nice, and I brought them back, and I took the JPEGs, and I neutralized the color, and I gave them a little bit of a green yellow tint with one of the presets I had. And I really liked it because it made the skin look a little oily, or I don't know. It just looked more like work. And I put it up in one of the Facebook groups for this camera, for the GFX. And some guy, by the way, this is, if you want to piss somebody off, take their picture off of, Facebook, and then color correct it, and then put it up there and tell them this is how your picture should look. This guy did this, and he pissed me off. Like, I said, "What's the matter?" He's like, "Well, if there's too much green. I corrected it for you." And I said, "Who the hell asked you to do that? Number one, And then we got into this thing, which was kind of on my part. I should have just ignored it. But I also had this thing of like, who the hell are you to say this, right?
Yeah.
Taking that aside, in fact, he took the green out, so it actually looked back the original picture, which was really funny. Right. It was like, so don't do that, please, to people. But or if you do, ask them, say, ask permission, and
or someone's having trouble, like what do I have to do to make this better?
Do that, but don't do it unilaterally. Don't do it just on your own, because it's almost like an insult, I think. Or do it on your own and don't tell anybody, and don't repost. Anyway, so his idea was going back to reality, or what I thought was maybe closer to reality than what I did. And it took away, of course, all the feeling of it, and of course pissed me off as well. But I forgetting the conflict part of this, it was interesting that this guy thought that whatever I did to the picture ruined it. He wasn't saying anything about the composition or anything like that. He was just saying about the color. And for me, it had the exact opposite. It felt like, again, I said it felt like it was greasy and oily, and it really made me feel more of seeing a blacksmith and stuff like that. And again, I'm not sure what my point is about this, but
no, but it's the impact, the emotional impact, and the aesthetic impact of editing the color. Yeah,
right. It was reduced and taken away, at least in my opinion. So but if you're approaching a subject and you have a definite idea, this is where I always like to tell people to like go look at other photographers' work and try to figure out what's going on in the picture. Just don't look at the shot. Look at the color, look at the composition. If you want to mimic another photographer, especially for beginning photographers, and I think that's a great thing to do, is to try to deconstruct what they're doing with their work, right? And see if it's something that appeals to you, see how you can do that yourself. Is it a removal of color, saturation, or really analyze a picture and see if you can do that, and then put those. Now I'm thinking about saying put those restrictions on, right? Don't just throw paint over a canvas. You're not even someone like Jackson Pollock, where you look at his pictures, his paintings, and you think it's just a bunch of random dots. And it's not. There's constriction.
The distribution of color is very amazing, and
it is, and it isn't just like he went to the store and bought a whole bunch of paints and decided to squeeze them onto a canvas, which is what other people think he might have done. Like, oh, my brother could do that, or I could do that, right? No, you can't. You can't come up with a color palette or a constriction like he does. So if you ever see a film of him painting, there is a big restriction in what he's doing, even though it doesn't seem that way. So how do you, see if you can do that with your own photography? And, it's not necessarily something that you necessarily have to figure out while you're shooting, but it can be, it can be something that you have in mind and saying, okay, well, maybe I won't shoot this incredibly saturated 3-color building because the way I want to present it, it won't do justice. And so I need to find something else that will fit in my my constricted desire. I mean, the constrictions that I'm going to place on myself. So maybe that's kind of how we can, I don't know. What do you think? And then we can wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way to go. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the subject. You start with a subject, a colorful subject that interests you, that you want to spend the time in post, or however you want to process it.
Yeah. All right.
And go from there, and learn your lessons and move on if you need to move on, and shoot more color subjects and follow the same process.
And see, I like that phrase, color voice. See what your color voice is, because you're going to have different voices in all the pictures that you're going to take. And if you're doing color, it'd be interesting to see what comes out of your color voice. So, all right.
And if you think of it as a language, you can't just start speaking a language right off the bat. You have
that's true. Yeah. You start with this. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to think about it. All righty. I think to be continued. I really like this idea of examining colors, because I think there's a lot more to it than just the science and stuff. And so anyway, I like to say to be continued about this. So That being said, where are we going to find you in the world of
Well,
photography?
in the world of the internets, on Vero and Twitter, and I apologize, I haven't been posting very much on Vero. I've got to get back on that, but I'm at W Rosin Photo on Instagram. I am Ward Rosin Fine Art, and thanks for. I'm getting some nibbles and messages, DMs from people on my Instagram and on.
Oh, really? Cool.
And the people are kind of interested, and I think we're getting some traction. I think we're getting some new listenership. I'm not sure, but it seems like that to me.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Facebook. Hi, everybody. On Facebook, I'm Ward Rosin Photo. My personal photo website is rosin.ca, rosin.ca, and the show's unofficial sponsor. Ornis.photo, ornis.photo. And I'm still working on deals. I'm still working them through.
You got Black Friday coming up, you know. Is it time to clear? Is it time to clear out your inventory?
There's a few. Actually, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And what about you? Where can we find you?
All right. So I am no longer on Twitter, or I am definitely not posting there. So I decided to move to Blue Sky. I don't know if you're on there. Are you?
I am not. I guess I will sign up.
Yeah, go sign up. My Blue Sky account is at AM Rosario. So go look for me there. If I'm going to be posting anything from now on, it's going to be in Blue Sky, not on X or Twitter. Instagram, AM Rosario Photo, which I haven't posted lately, but I might start putting some stuff on there. I'm getting kind of itchy to show stuff again. Website is amrosario.com, but go to my Facebook page too. It's facebook.com. It's Rosario Photo there. And look, we've been getting a slow, steady stream of Substack subscribers, so it really excites me. It's nice to have a bit of a community there. And yes, I know I keep saying this. I'm backlogged on I've got a draft up there that I've been meaning to post. I just need to find the pictures of it for it. But anyway, streetshots.substack.com. Leave us a voicemail if you can. Come on, guys. You got to be asking us questions, right? There's so many of you out there listening. Drop us a quick voicemail at speakpipe.com/streetshots. And if you want to support the show, which we're very happy for you to do, and become an honorary producer, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario. And so we're coming up on our Thanksgiving, and for those of us in the United States, you guys don't eat too much, and which is of course not going to happen because everybody's going to eat too much, and then that's fine. Eat as much as you want. I don't care. I'm going to do the same thing. And Ward, you already had your Thanksgiving, so
had our Thanksgiving a month ago. Yeah, we're just cruising into another week, and we had a cold snap here. It was getting close to 0 Fahrenheit here for a week or so, and it's backed off a little. It's closer to freezing, so it should be a nice week.
Yeah. So everybody have a great turkey day, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. And Ward, thanks for joining me, and have a great night.
Always a pleasure. You too. Good night.
All right. Good night.